Okay, I'm going to call the meeting of the Zoning Board of Appeals to order for February 10th at 7:35 in the evening. Would you stand for the Pledge of Allegiance?
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, next on our agenda for this evening is the acceptance of the minutes from January the 13th. Is there a motion to accept the
I
minutes?
make a motion to accept the minutes as read.
Second.
Motion and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
I'll abstain.
Okay, and one
I
abstention.
wasn't here.
Fine, right. One abstention by Mr. Byers. Next would be the committee reports. We did have a communication that came in from Mr. Kohler saying that he is looking to have a housing partnership meeting at some point in the future, right?
Okay, yeah.
So we know that that's on the docket. And from the chairman of the Merrimack Valley Planning Commission, Mr. Byers?
I think we got an email. Angela, did we get an email on the programs, the training? I'll look into that. I know they're doing some again this year, so I'll follow up on that. But other than that, nothing else to report.
Okay, great. All right, I'm going to skip down, just go slightly out of order down to the continued public hearings for the special permit and variance for the zoning district I-2, Great Circle Central LLC, 85 Terminal Road, that was continued to tonight, previously at the request of the applicant. There was a communication that did come in today from counsel for the applicant, Miranda Gooding. She states that she's informed that they're exploring other potential sites and a redesign for 85 Terminal Road, and they would like to request the board's permission to withdraw the pending application without prejudice. She wanted to know whether our presence was required. I did get a call from the Angela today. I don't know. It's up to them whether they chose to come to their meeting or not this evening. So I think they elected not to come this evening, Angela. Is that correct? Okay. So that's where we are tonight. We have an open hearing. If they want to withdraw without, like any dispositive action, it would require 4 votes, whether it be to withdraw without prejudice or to close the public hearing and adjudicate the petition. And it's up to the board in terms of what they'd like to move and how they'd like to handle this tonight.
I'd be happy to make a motion to allow the withdrawal without prejudice, Mr. Chair.
I'll second that motion.
Okay, there's a motion and a second. Any further discussion?
This came in 8 o'clock this morning. Is that what that email?
It came in early this
Yeah.
morning.
8:08 a.m.
During the state of emergency.
During the state of emergency. Yeah. Good thing you were there to get it, or we wouldn't have known.
Oh, during the state of emergency, yes.
Dedicated town employees.
But the town building was open today, correct? And so your offices were open to receive the email.
During a state of emergency?
During the state of emergency.
During the state of emergency.
Yes.
Neither snow nor rain nor gloom of night
Or state of emergency.
or state of emergency.
So Angela is an essential person in the eyes of the Commonwealth?
Apparently so.
Well, I think it may be only applied to state government, right? So
Yeah.
as to local government, I think perhaps you were...
Although the school department closed, and the phone call from the superintendent said because the governor declared a state of emergency.
Oh, is that so?
Oh, it's a conflict.
I don't know
Well-
what's going on. I don't know. I don't
Well-
ask.
It's 7:30 this evening. The road seemed fine getting here, so...
It was a little hairy,
Just my driveway.
In the neighborhood, plenty hairy.
Okay, so we do
Anyway,
It's a lot of fun.
Anywho.
we do have a motion on the floor with a second. So I think, now, was everybody present at the, that's going to vote on this at the previous meetings?
I was, Mr. Chair.
You were,
I'll
Mr.
speak for
Byers?
myself.
Right,
And there was no evidence heard in January, correct?
No.
correct.
All right, so I was here.
It was continued from a previous date. Because there was some discussion in the last meeting, I think, how far we were going to let the continuances go. There were previous continuances. It's been continued,
November and January.
you know.
The agenda.
Yeah, November and January.
Okay,
No more continuances, Mr. Chair.
no more
Hence the
continuances.
withdrawal.
Henceforth, they are withdrawing.
All right, well, I'll call the
I'm ready to vote.
individual vote, so hearing, Paul, how you going to vote in your motion?
Mr. Chair, I am the most enthusiastic aye I could be.
Okay, so there's one,
I'll vote, I'll allow it.
okay,
Aye, Captain.
aye,
Yay.
yay, okay. I'm voting no, but it is declared withdrawn without prejudice. Okay? Just for the record, the chairman voted no. So we can send them a notice for that as well. Right, that'll be the decision. So then they can reapply, they'll be able to reapply at a future date.
And by reapplying, they would have to re-advertise and go through the, okay.
Correct.
All right.
All right, so that takes care of that matter. And just as to miscellaneous correspondence, it looks like there's a communication that came in from CHI. So the next matter on the agenda involves a discussion of a 40B that I had recused from previously. I'm going to continue to recuse from that on the record. So if you just give me a moment, I'm going to pass the gavel over to Ms. McIntyre, who has always chaired that, and that'll conclude this evening.
Thank you.
See you in March, Mr. Chair.
See you in March.
All right, Paul. If we have
Mark.
anything that month.
No, March. Pictures. We got pictures in March.
We're just going to come just for a picture?
I will.
Okay.
Yes, there'll be notices for,
I'm not trying to find reasons to be excused, Mr. Clerk.
There might be a state of emergency. Thanks for reappointing me clerk, by the way. I appreciate it.
Our collective pleasure.
No president, chair. By the way.
For the record, I guess I should recuse myself from the discussion
It's just us.
since I'm not part of the 40B project.
Just a discussion, so you're welcome to sit
He
and
wants to
stay.
make Final Jeopardy.
All
We
right.
should let him go.
But you don't have to stay if you want. If,
What- okay.
if the roads are icing up, you might want to get out and back.
It's a state of emergency.
I'm
be over by
serious.
now.
If I could, I'd be home. Because it's
All right,
icing up.
what do we have to do here?
All right. What happened is the Commonwealth, in the process of reviewing the application, they came across a conflict. And basically, the conflict was in one of the, that we allow first priority to North Andover citizens. So what the Commonwealth would like us to do, Mass Housing would like us to do, is to sign an acknowledgement that if there's a conflict in this provision, then Mass Housing gets to decide what to do. If we don't, which I asked, I had talked to Eating Netta, I went back and talked to her. If we don't, then, well, they have a conflict with condition 7. So if we don't, which I did ask, in the event, they get to write their own little amendment in there that said if there is, they'll write a number 39 condition that if there's any conflict or inconsistencies, they get to decide whatever they want, pretty much.
Mass housing.
Correct. Within the whole thing. This way, if we just sign the acknowledgement, it only limits that one condition
Paragraph.
7. Correct. And this was,
So what, the conflict is that they can't have preference for North Andover.
correct.
We've
We've always done it.
Isn't that pretty typical? Yeah.
Well, I'm pretty much seeing it this way, as that now developers are just going to bypass each town and just go to Mass Housing and just get whatever they want. They might as well, because this is what happens anyways.
They might as well.
So,
But was this?
I don't know why we
This
spent
wasn't
all
brought
that
up by the
time.
developer, this was
Yes,
brought up
it
by Mass
was.
Housing. Oh, it was?
correct. If you read it in here, for final approval for Berry Farms, when we prepare,
What do they care?
meaning impairing, one of these says it. I think it's Catherine Lacey who said it.
Katie Lacy?
Yeah,
most
Catherine
people-
Lacey. in her December 19th email. When we prepare the,
That's what I'm reading. I don't see where it says. I think they just reviewed it, found it.
I think they reviewed it with them.
Oh.
I know one of these was in here. Da, da, da. That way there are no
Is this the
serious
letter you're
errors.
looking for?
No, there's a bunch, because I was going back with them.
Although
back
she's
and
given an
forth.
example where it says only former football players are eligible. Believe it or not, we've gotten something close to this. Did you see that?
I did. Very colorful.
I thought I saw one that they didn't want it in there, the developer didn't want it in there, which would be typical for them anyways, so. Because there's no benefit to North Andover from them. I can say it now. Which one was it? I just, for some reason, I thought I saw it. So I'm going to have to find it and then. Petition contains.
Well, since we're having a discussion, Madam Chair, I'm relatively reluctant to give away any blanket authorities. If we are just signing off that the mass housing is more than welcome to change number 7, assuming they have the authority and there's a conflict, then by all means, let them have at it. But if they haven't identified any other conflicts, and this thing has been on record since April 8th of last year, so we're looking at 10 months this thing has been floating around, and we haven't heard of any other conflicts. I'd rather not have somebody either inadvertently or purposefully use this single conflict to rewrite the other 40 conditions. So I kind of want to know what's going on with the decision that we made. So I guess to the extent that we say, okay, if mass housing or somebody has a problem, and that problem is a legitimate one based in regulation or law, then by all means. I don't want to have my signature on something that's contrary to mass law. So amend away. But I want to know what's going on. I don't want mass housing to say that was just the camel's nose under the tent, and all of a sudden they've touched all the other 40 conditions without me knowing about it.
My feeling is this thing is passed as a 40B with 25% low income. Shouldn't North Andover residents have first crack? And at the risk of sounding like a complete racist, what if some foreigner with a green card comes in and be low income? Okay? North Andover doesn't get a first crack at it versus some foreigner? Okay, who just got a driver's license?
I'm trying to see where she.
I mean, North Andover residents should have first preference on this. That's a no-brainer.
They don't say. She gives that as an example.
No, if there's one there's one here.
The only conflict is in the comprehensive permit, meaning impinging on the role of mass housing and the subsidizing agent, is the portion of condition 7 which purports to regulate the administration and oversight of the lottery and lottery agent. See what I mean? So I don't think it has.
Does it just impair mass housing, or is it something that's contrary to Massachusetts law or regulation? I mean, if it's just something that's.
But you know what I mean? I don't think it's the local preference they're talking about. She gives us an example of what they would find. See what I mean? It says, "Hi, Ellen. Kathy Lacey said the only conflict in the comprehensive permit is the portion of condition 7 which purports to regulate the administration and oversight of the lottery and lottery agent."
Well, you guys have the condition 7 here. So condition 7 states,
Oh, that would help. Let me just look at 7.
is the residents of the town of North Andover.
In accordance with guidelines 40B, extended allow master 70% of the affordable unit should be given to residents of the town of North Andover, which for the purpose is defined as anyone currently.
Which we've always done. And that's the only conflict that, yeah, I know, this was,
But they don't say why it's they don't say why it's a conflict. Is it me, or am I missing something? Do you know what I mean, Paul? Do you see?
I see what you mean.
I'm just listening to this, I still don't understand what the conflict.
I don't either, that's what I'm
The
trying.
conflicts between
Therefore, the
two
following
things.
portion of the conference
The
report have no
conflict-
binding effect. The portion of condition 7 which, see, it's, it says the only portion of the comprehensive permit that has no binding force is that portion is, I don't know if they have the right, it says A, that portion of condition 7 which purports to regulate the administration and oversight of the lottery and lottery agent. Where does it say? Accordance with the permit. Where does it say that anybody's regulating the administration or oversight of the lottery or
says-
lottery agent?
It says subject to
Subject to approval of Mass Housing, the applicant shall manage the lottery to select tenants. The applicant shall bear all lottery agent costs. The applicant retains the responsibility. I don't think they're striking down the whole thing.
No, it's just that Mass Housing would be responsible for being the lottery agent. That's what I'm understanding, right?
Right, and they are, aren't they?
But they cite the conflict of residents, or is that just an
No,
example?
the conflict is that this statement here is number 7, is saying that the applicant shall manage the lottery, whereas
Mass housing should be.
the
The
alternative
applicant shall
of
manage
the
the lottery to
conflict.
select tenants.
But then if you read the acknowledgement, which is what should be signed, it doesn't make sense to me. It's the acknowledgement, which is the second page.
That's where you found that. It says developer's request, right?
Oh, okay.
The board hereby agrees that the foregoing regulatory agreement, including the terms and conditions, the form of affordable housing. All right, I mean, I don't have a problem with that. Like,
You don't?
no,
Okay.
like Paul, you just said, any local preference set forth in a comprehensive permit shall be implemented only to the extent in compliance with applicable state and federal fair housing rules. In compliance with the limited dividend requirement shall be determined as limited. It just can't be in a conflict with state and federal fair housing rules, I would think. That's what they want us to.
So what they're saying is the decision was a conflict? How it was written, number 7 was a conflict, and so this corrects it?
It just says, to the extent allowable by law, 7 can stand up. I think that's what they're saying.
I mean, regardless if we sign this or not, they're going to do whatever they want anyways. But I don't think signing this hurts. It still gives us
No.
some bit of
I
control.
don't think so.
Can I ask a question? Without reading through this paragraph, so preference for renting up to 70% of the affordable units shall be given to residents of the town of North Andover, which for this purpose is defined as anyone currently living in the town, working in the town, blah, 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 okay? What is the problem with that? If Mass Housing don't like it, let them kick it out. I think the town should go by this. They're giving first preference to North Andover residents, the way it should be.
But I don't think that was just an example.
They still are.
Yes,
I don't,
they are.
it's not striking down that.
It wasn't the
whole
preference.
7, is it?
It was who's doing it.
Well, we don't.
Isn't the lottery agent
I don't know
doing
if
it?
it's striking down all of 7.
As long as it's in compliance with state and federal law, I think is
I
what.
mean, we have a few intelligent people here that cannot decipher the language that we're being presented with. I mean, it doesn't make any sense.
Couple lawyers.
Well, I'm sure it
And
makes
I
sense,
have-
we just don't have enough, we don't have enough, nobody has told us. So the conflict
Why
appears
should
to be,
it-
has to have, the conflict has something to do with the local preference. And what this is saying is that the local preference that we have as one of our conditions shall be implemented only to the extent in compliance with applicable state and federal fair housing rules, which generally speaking is fine, but we don't know what that means. Do applicable state and federal fair housing rules mean that you cannot have a local preference?
Yeah,
Because if so, then we're
that's the
striking the
question.
entirety of condition 7. So we don't,
Right.
we don't know
Which
the
we-
effect. It's conceptually, this doesn't
Right.
sound unreasonable, but
Right.
we don't know.
Right.
'Cause
Sitting
it-
here right now, I don't know the real impact.
You're right, because it says right here that the acknowledgement is saying that you're right, I don't know, is a local preference, but we've had them before, is it never it's never been raised as an issue, right, Ellen?
No,
No.
I mean,
this is new.
So is
'cause
that,
it-
you're right, is that violating fair marketing laws and regulation?
We don't know.
In cases where the ZBA and the town as a whole are opposed to the project, they're sometimes reluctant to sign the acknowledgement.
But if you see Edie's email.
What does that
says-
got to do with it?
Are you saying the only
This whole
conflict
email
pertains
doesn't
to
make
the lottery? So the conflict is the lottery, it's not the responsibility of the town, it's the responsibility of
mean,
the.
I don't know if the, and then
I've
she
inferred
wrote,
that,
she wrote,
but
as a
it's-
former
it's
town
not
planner,
clear.
I know this could be dicey if the board was really unhappy with the project. I don't think that's relevant. It's not whether we dislike the project or not. We just gave the local preference as we've done 100 other times.
And Edie stated that this was a boilerplate decision that
Yeah.
was,
And if we don't sign it, what's the ramification, she said?
if we don't sign it, then Mass Housing controls the whole decision.
Sounds like they control it anyways.
But the members
Yep.
might- the board-
Pretty much, yes.
It sounds like they control it anyways.
Again, we should just skip that whole year and a half that we did.
Right,
Have
right.
to go to Mass Housing.
So why should we be around? They just go to mass housing.
Well, I suspect that there are a limited number of things that mass housing can, I suspect that there are a limited number of quote-unquote conflicts that can occur.
I mean, I could say if it says you can't rent to, people with small children or other issues that might be in conflict with fair housing laws, but I don't know about, you're right, is that a conflict with fair housing laws? I never thought it was in the past.
So here's our choices: to sign the acknowledgement,
Or not signed.
to not sign the acknowledgement, in which case the regulatory agreement to be signed by the developer of Mass Housing will include a conflict provision listed below.
Oh, yeah, that was the,
Yes, in the event of any conflict or inconsistency.
So,
the terms of this agreement shall control.
Yep.
Isn't
They can
that
just
the
add-
point?
They can just add something to what we did.
What agreement? Their own agreement between the developer and Mass Housing, apparently. You're right, so they're gonna do whatever they wanna do anyway.
Pretty much.
I don't wanna violate any fair housing laws, I'd like to know if we are. But
Apparently we are, because we're given preference,
To North Andover citizens.
Which again, we've
Correct.
done,
which now all of a
Have we
sudden.
done in every
Like,
project,
You know what
Ellen?
it is? It's like another little thing that they're taking away from the town with the 40Bs. Well, let's take out this one.
but
Let's take out this one.
it only comes out if it's a clear violation of fair housing laws, but no one's saying no one's ever said it was before. So I don't know why all of a sudden on this project it's,
I'm interpreting it as, not the Andover citizens will still have preference
unless it violates.
unless it violates.
Fair housing laws.
Fair housing laws,
But
which
if it
someone
doesn't,
brings it up.
Why are they even bringing this up? Do you know
I don't know.
what I mean?
So I'm going to leave it up to
What
the
do you think?
board. Would you like to sign the acknowledgement?
Counsel.
I'm reluctant to affix my signature to anything that I don't fully understand, or at least partially understand. And it sounds like there's not according to Edie, it doesn't sound like there's an extraordinary difference between signing the acknowledgement and not signing the acknowledgement. So since I don't understand the acknowledgement, I'm not going to sign. I'm not interested in signing.
I'd like to know going forward if local preference is considered a violation of fair housing law.
Well, Edie's retiring,
I saw that.
yes.
For her.
So, and Tom wouldn't give me an answer. So I have no place to turn to find those answers for you.
Did you talk to?
Yes, I did.
You were allowed to contact the town council?
With permission, I did, and he told me I had to contact Edie. This is just really procedural.
I'm going to agree with Paul, which I don't usually do, but.
Yes, you do.
You know what? I'm going to agree with you, too.
Yeah. I'm not
It's easier
signing it.
that way.
We're going to, as a board,
They're going to
choose
do what
not
they're
to
going to do
sign it.
anyway, so.
Well, let's ask Alan.
I'll go with the mouth of wisdom,
I
the
think we
person of
spent,
wisdom.
we
sitting
spent
there at
all that
home.
time coming up with that agreement and all those provisions. I don't think anyone has the right to change it, so.
Well, I suspect somebody does have the right to
They do.
change it, but I'd rather not.
Don't want to enforce, I don't want to encourage them to change our decision.
I don't want them to give me, I don't want to give them my permission to change it.
That's the best way of putting it. You're giving them your permission, That's the simplest and easiest way out. You're giving them the permission to change it.
That's right, I'm not going to give them my gun. They can pry it from my cold, dead fingers.
Let them earn it, but you don't have to give it to them. I agree with them. It's scary.
You're on camera, why are you laughing at me so much?
So we as a board choose not to sign the acknowledgement.
That's the best way of putting it, the way he said it.
What did you say?
You know what, I'd
I'd
like,
say it again, on camera. It was so colorful.
no, but you know what, if someone could give us a clear explanation as to why it.
No, nobody can. Edie's retiring, and Tom Herbelis is uninterested in
Do you
speaking to the
understand?
zone.
Did you see
the
this
zoning
over
board of
one simple
appeals.
question? Do you see all this stuff?
Okay, I'm good.
We as a board choose not to sign the acknowledgement.
Right.
So do we need a motion?
Why?
I move to abstain from signing the acknowledgement.
Why?
Why?
Yeah.
Because
I don't want to give them
Yeah,
permission to alter our
I
decision.
don't want to give them my authority, just like my gun. I don't want to give them my authority.
You never
They're gonna
heard
have,
that we said for-
they're gonna have to pry it from my cold, dead fingers.
I don't think when I say that to like Mass Housing and I write Katie saying we as a board because we don't want to give you our gun,
No,
I don't think it's going to work.
well, I'm sure Katie's watching at home right now, so she's gonna have the message, she'll be primed and prepared
Sure,
for
she
it.
drove to North Andover, so she
You
could
know
watch
what?
this on
I
local
like
TV.
simple.
well-
We as a board choose not to sign the
Katie will take a
acknowledgement.
pass.
Yeah, that's it.
And that's it, and that's all I'm going to say.
Sure.
Beautiful.
Unless someone can convince me that why.
Nobody
is-
wants to
is this a
convince you.
is this
You
a
are
conflict or why?
unconvincible.
Okay.
Okay, you're a lawyer. If you can't interpret all this in here and find and be.
couldn't.
That was a poor presentation.
Do we have to make a motion to adjourn?
I'm not a
Yes,
lawyer.
please.
I didn't even know whether you need to make a motion to.
Well, that's a
Yeah, we were
discussion,
just
so we're going to just
discussing.
decide not to sign as a
Yeah.
board.
Correct, yes.
Yeah.
And move it,
Motion
No, I
to
don't
close
think we need a
discussion.
motion.
Motion to close
No, if-
discussion, just for laughs?
No,
Is it bad if we make a motion?
we don't need to.
No, we don't need to, but what if we do?
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Then we'll have to stay like,
you
yeah.
had one miscellaneous correspondence.
We did CHI.
Oh, you did? I
Yeah.
didn't hear.
Al did it.
Because I missed it.
Yep,
What was the
Think about the state of emergency.
That's it. I should.
What was the correspondence?
CHI. The housing with the Orchard Village is all set.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Okay? Oh, that's right, I'm chairing.
Do you want to make a motion to adjourn?
I think Paul already did.
I'll second
Yeah,
it.
I made a
Rick-
motion to adjourn,
Rick
Angela.
sent it,
I will
seconded.
second it.
All those in favor?
All right?
Aye.